Right beneath your feet, there's an internet older than every empire, every civilization, every human language ever spoken. It has no wires, no servers, no code, and it has been running without a single update for 450 million years. We live in an age where we feel more connected than ever. Notifications, messages, feeds that never stop scrolling. And yet, something feels broken. Loneliness is an epidemic. Anxiety is the background noise of modern life. We have 1,000 connections, and somehow we still feel alone. But what if the answer to our disconnection was never above us? What if it was always below? Because underneath every forest on this planet, there is a living network so ancient, so intelligent, so generous, that it makes our most advanced technology look like a child's drawing. And what it can teach us about caring for each other might be the most important lesson humanity has ever ignored. Scientists call it the Mycorrhizal network, but it earned another name, one that sounds almost too poetic to be real: the Wood Wide Web. Here's what happens. Beneath almost every tree you've ever walked past, there are fungi. Not the mushrooms you see above the surface. Those are just a fruit, just the tip of something immense, but mycorrhiza. Thread-like filaments called hyphae, thinner than human hair, that stretch out through the soil in every direction. A single teaspoon of healthy forest soil contains miles of these fungal threads. And they don't just sit there. They connect, tree to tree, root to root, species to species, until the entire forest floor becomes a living circuit board. And through this network, trees talk, not with words, not with sound, but with chemistry, with sugar, with phosphorus, with warnings. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is measurable, documented, peer-reviewed biology. The forest beneath your feet is a society, and it has been functioning, cooperating, sharing, sacrificing for roughly 450 million years. That's about 200 million years before the first dinosaur even existed. Let that settle for a moment. Before anything with a backbone walked this earth, the fungi had already built a welfare system. In the forests of British Columbia, a scientist named Suzanne Samar spent decades doing something most researchers wouldn't bother with. She got on her hands and knees. She dug into the dirt. She traced the invisible. And what she found changed everything. Samar discovered that in every forest, there are what she calls mother trees. The oldest, largest, most deeply rooted trees in the stand. And these trees are not just surviving. They are parenting. Through the mycorrhizal network, a mother tree can recognize her own seedlings among strangers in the soil. And when she does, she sends them more. More carbon, more nutrients, more of what they need to survive. She reduces her own root competition to give them space to grow. Think about that. A tree, a being with no brain, no eyes, no heart as we define it, identifies her offspring in the dark underground and chooses to feed them. But here's what makes it extraordinary. She doesn't only feed her own. When a neighboring tree, even one of different species, is struggling, sick, shaded, starving, the mother tree sends resources through the fungal network to help it survive. A Douglas fir sharing sugars with a paper birch. A birch returning the favor in a different season. Not because of contract, not because of obligation, but because in a forest, survival was never meant to be a solo project. The network doesn't just share food, it shares intelligence. When a tree is attacked by insects, by disease, by parasites, it sends chemical distress signals through the mycorrhizal web. And the trees that receive this warning, trees sometimes hundreds of feet away, begin producing defensive chemicals before the threat even reaches them. They taste the danger in the message, and they prepare. Imagine that. A tree you've never spoken to, a tree you share no bloodline with, sends you a message that says, something is coming. Protect yourself. And you listen. And you act. We built the internet in the 1990s and called it revolutionary. The forest has been doing this since before flowers existed. But there's a darker chapter in this story, and it might be the most moving one. When a tree is dying, when disease has taken hold, and there is no recovery, something remarkable happens. The dying tree doesn't hoard its remaining resources. It doesn't cling to what it has. It gives it away. Through the mycorrhizal network, the dying tree dumps its stored carbon, its nitrogen, its phosphorus, everything it spent decades collecting, back into the web. Back to its neighbors. Back to its offspring. Back to the community that held it up for a century. Its last act on this earth is generosity. No will, no lawyer, no ceremony. Just a quiet, underground act of love that no human eye will ever see. Now, let's hold up a mirror. Because when you study the mycorrhizal network long enough, you stop seeing biology. You start seeing a philosophy, a political system, an ethics that we, with all our intelligence, all our language, all our institutions, still struggle to practice. The forest operates on a principle that is breathtakingly simple. Those who have more give to those who have less. Not as charity, not as pity, as architecture, as the fundamental design of how the system stays alive. The strongest trees in the forest are not the ones that took the most. They're the ones that gave the most. The ones most deeply connected. The ones whose roots touched the most lives. Suzanne Samar found that when you remove a mother tree from a forest, when you log the biggest, oldest tree, the survival rate of surrounding seedlings collapses. The network weakens. The forest becomes fragmented, vulnerable, sick. Does that sound familiar? What happens to a neighborhood when you remove its elders? What happens to a community when you cut its connections? What happens to a society that tells every individual, you are on your own, compete, take climb, win? The forest already answered that question 450 million years ago. Isolation is not strength. Accumulation is not success. And no organism, no matter how tall it grows, survives long without the network that feeds it. A tree without its mycorrhizal connections absorbs up to 80% less phosphorus. It grows slower. It fights disease worse. It is more likely to fall in a storm. Not because it's weak, but because it was never designed to stand alone. And neither were you. There's a reason you feel something when you walk through a forest. There's a reason your shoulders drop, your breathing slows, your mind goes quiet. It's not just the air. It's not just the color green. It's recognition. Something deep in your body, older than language, older than thought, remembers what it's like to be part of a network. A real one. Not one built on algorithms and dopamine loops, but one built on mutual aid, on patience, on the slow, unglamorous exchange of what is needed. Japanese researchers who study Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, have measured what happens to the human body after just 2 hours among trees. Cortisol drops, blood pressure lowers, natural killer cells, the immune cells that fight cancer, increase for up to 30 days afterward. The forest doesn't just calm you. It heals you, measurably, chemically, cellularly. And maybe that's because when you step into a forest, you are stepping into the oldest functioning community on Earth. And for the first time in days, or weeks, or years, your nervous system recognizes something it has been starving for: belonging. We don't need to return to nature. That implies we ever left. We are nature. Every cell in your body was built from elements that once moved through soil, through roots, through the same fungal networks that have been trading life beneath this planet's surface since before the continents had names. You're not separate from this system. You are a node that forgot it was connected. So the next time the world feels too loud, too fast, too fractured, remember this. Beneath the quietest forest on Earth, there is a conversation happening. A conversation that has been going on for 450 million years. Trees feeding the sick, warning the vulnerable, giving everything they have to those who come after them. No fame, no recognition, no applause, just the quiet, ancient certainty that life works better when it's shared. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be seen to matter. And the strongest thing you will ever do is reach out in the dark and help someone grow. If this made you think or feel or pause for even a moment, you're already part of this network. Stay connected. There's more growing here.